Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What's Up Wednesday. My name is Rachel, and I'm on the client success team here at Early Learning Ventures. And today I am joined by Hayden, who is a certified Synergetic Play Therapist and also the owner and coach behind Low Tide Play Therapy and Coaching. Welcome, Hayden. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have you. Really excited for you to share with us today. Thank you also to everybody who is joining live and watching with us, or if you're watching the recording of this video, thank you so much. We'd love if you could pop in the comments and say hello or let us know where you're watching from. We work with programs in all different states, so it's always fun to see where our viewers are at. I'm in Arizona. Hayden, you're in North Carolina, right?
Yep.
We were just talking about the store. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that everyone, if you are out on that side on the East Coast, I hope that everyone is okay after that crazy storm. We were just talking about that. It's been a lot. All right, fine. We've got Tammy in Hawaii, Crystal in Colorado. It's always fun to see all different faces, familiar faces and new faces as well. So if you have not heard of Early Learning Ventures before, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're based out of Colorado, and our mission is to expand access to quality and affordable childcare. So I have links in the description of this video to take you to our website where you can learn more about us and the resources that we offer, as well as access to our full What's Up Wednesday playlist and the links and contact information that Hayden provided me with as well. So I definitely recommend clicking those links, checking out his website and social media to learn more. And if you have any questions that come up while we are live today, now's a great time to ask, so feel free to add them in the comments. If you do have a question that comes in and you're watching this video later, feel free to still add a comment or reach out to myself or Hayden so we can follow up with you. We also have an exciting giveaway announcement. This could save you anywhere from $300 to $1,200 a year, depending on the size of your program. So this is for our existing Alliance Core users to win a one-year scholarship to use the system completely free. And to be entered to win, we're just asking that you leave a comment on our What's Up Wednesday videos answering this question. What do you do to take care of yourself outside of work? What does that look like for you? So whether that's going for a walk, taking a nap, reading a book, for me, I guess it's kind of sort of all of the above. I love to spend time outdoors, and that always makes me feel rested and rejuvenated. But I also love to curl up on the couch with a good book or a craft project like knitting. So we would love to hear how you support yourself and your own well-being outside of caring for children or others. So you can add a comment to this video. Let us know what it is that you do to take care of yourself. And this will be a 7-week long giveaway, so you'll have lots of time to enter. You can come back every week and add a comment on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you're not yet familiar with Alliance Core and would like to learn more, please visit the description of this video where you can get a free demo. You can contact us with any questions. I'm also going to add the link to the comments here as well. All right, Hayden, let's get started. What is up on this Wednesday? Can you start us off by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your work as both a Synergetic Play Therapist and a coach?
Yeah, of course. Well, like I said, excited to be here. My name's hayden.ahlbrandt. I am a certified Synergetic Play Therapist, as you spoke about. I kind of have two different branches. So I created my own private practice, Low Tide Play Therapy, where I offer play therapy services for children. And within that, I worked with the parents of the kids that I'm working with and help try to give them the tools and information that might be helpful to support their kid. So while doing that, I found I really, really enjoyed it. And so I started branching out into working with adults. And how do I support adults more from an educational lens versus providing therapy to help empower the adults to be able to support their kids? So that's where low tide coaching and consulting came from, was the idea of how do I help empower adults to be able to support the kids in their lives versus just saying, hey, I'm a play therapist and I work with kids.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can totally see how those two would go hand in hand and how it would be a natural progression there. When you're working with children, you're also wanting to provide those resources for their parents and their caregivers, right? To be able to give them the tools to help as well.
Definitely. And I always tell people I'm a parent myself. And so it's all this information, right? And all this understanding of how I work with kids in a therapist role and you're not a therapist when you're a parent. And so how do I give you this and give you the tools, but also like the understanding of we're human and we're not
Yeah.
going to be able to recall all these things all the time. Because I constantly am telling the parents I work with, like, this is the water I swim in. This is what I do every day. I love it. And it's really, really hard for me to remember all these things when I'm in the midst of just those really challenging parenting moments.
Yeah. Awesome. So for those watching who might not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit more about synergetic play therapy?
Yeah. So synergetic play therapy, you probably would get a different answer from pretty much everyone who is certified in it as far as what would be the thing about synergetic play therapy. The way I like to explain it to parents, though, is it really is kind of foundationally around nervous system regulation. So it's really about understanding nervous system regulation and dysregulation and those times when we become activated, and then being able to utilize that to help support kids with emotional regulation, right? Helping the way I like to explain it is helping to kind of decrease how intense it feels for the kid so that it's not so overwhelming. And then also at the same time, helping to give the tools and the strategies and the ability to be able to regulate their own nervous system. So that self-regulation piece when things are starting to get really big. So like I said, at the foundation, I kind of think of it as that nervous system activation being a huge piece because I feel like that is just a really, really big piece of what we're doing is helping support kids in their own nervous system activation and regulation.
Thank you. This is a new subject for me for sure. I follow you on Instagram, and that's how I learned about the work that you're doing. And I have learned so much. I've got to say, not even just with supporting children, but even myself as well. So I definitely recommend if you're not familiar with synergetic play therapy, or maybe not familiar with Hayden and the work that he's doing, definitely go to his Instagram because there's a lot of great resources there. So Hayden, can you tell us, how does neuroscience tie into your work with children through play therapy? Can you
Yeah,
kind of explain the understanding of the brain activation and helping to manage these behaviors?
yeah, definitely. And I think this is a beautiful spot to go back to kind of what you just said too about the idea of it helping us, right, as the
Yeah.
adults. Because a lot of times I'll get questions when I post things on Instagram around neuroscience and stuff like that about like, what age is this for? And I'm like, well, it's the human brain. It's for everybody, right? We have different developmental levels and different pieces, and like this is the human brain. And so I always love when people make that connection of like, oh, this applies to me too.
Yeah.
Um, so with that being said, one of the foundational things I like to teach to any adult I'm working with comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's his flipping the lid model. And the reason I like to explain it is it just gives us a really basic understanding of what's going on for a kid in their brain in those moments that are so big, a lot of times so irrational, so illogical, right? And there's a reason for that. So the flipping your lid model, what it basically says is we have our brainstem where we're really controlled by survival instincts. We have our limbic system where we're controlled by our emotions. And then we have our cortex, which is where logical, rational thinking is online. So this is really that like logical part of our brain, right? And so the flipping your lid model, what Dr. Siegel says is when we become dysregulated, we flip our lid and essentially our cortex more or less goes offline. So for me, just in my own practice as a parent, that's such helpful information right from the get-go of I'm constantly coming in trying to fix it or trying to be rational or logical or explain to my kid kind of what happened. And what this tells us is that's not the time to do that. Like that logical, rational part of the brain is offline. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that just at its core, like just is such a big shift to be able to say, oh, I recognize that this is offline. And so now is not the time where logical, rational is going to land. And with that being said, like a lot of words aren't going to land, right? Because that upper part of the brain is essentially offline. So how do we come in and we essentially kind of bring that back online? And then once we bring that back online, then we can have those conversations. We can talk about the logical, the rational, maybe if we need to talk about how to make amends for what just happened. So just at the most basic level, I feel like that's one of the most powerful things that I can teach because it just is that shift of stepping into that moment where things feel so big, so irrational, and then being able to step back and say, okay, I recognize right now is not the time for me to explain it, talk about it, try to fix it. It's time for me to take care of the kid, and then we can do those next steps.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And it's really helpful to have that visual. And also, I mean, I know I've heard the term. I don't know if anyone watching has heard that term flipping your lid before, but it's really interesting to see that visual and put it into that context. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, just personally, like it's been right. This is the understanding that I kind of have professionally, but it's been so helpful personally because in
Yeah.
those moments when I'm supporting my little kid through a big emotion, being able to step back and say, okay, hold on, let's take a beat, and then we'll step into that next level. So it's, yeah, I
Yeah,
really,
that's super helpful to understand that there's more happening inside than what you're able to see on the outside and how to be able to support them. Can you kind of explain what dysregulation looks like in children? How can early childhood educators, parents, caregivers, how can we recognize these signs?
yeah. So a big piece that is really at the beginning of any work I'm doing in the play therapy, and I'm always telling parents like this is the foundational piece to the rest of it, is working with the kid around interoceptive awareness. And so what I mean by that is your interoceptive sense is your sense that essentially is telling you um, like what's happening. The way that I was first taught it when at the most basic level is like, how do you know when you need to go to the bathroom? You are feeling symptoms in your body, right, that are cluing you in that it's time to stop and go to use the restroom. So it's that same idea with our emotions. Like, how do you know you are feeling angry? Like, typically, you're going to be like squeezing your fists, or maybe like the interoception piece, right? Like, maybe my face is getting hot, or I'm clenching my jaw. And so, just some of those symptoms that are cluing us into anger is arising, right? Or sad. Maybe let's go the opposite direction. How do you know you're feeling sad? Are you feeling heavy? Maybe like the tears welling behind your eyes, lethargic. And so just those clues that clue us into what we're feeling. So going then to your question, right, of like, how do we recognize those things? A lot of times it's really, really hard, right? Because what I hear from parents and adults and educators is like, it's like the flip of a switch. And so a lot of times we don't have a lot of that warning of what's going on. And we might be able to pick up on some of those. So like if you see it like you can tell it's building, right? So that might be a time to step in. Um, and just like I said, it's really hard to, I'm constantly working with adults who are talking about trying to catch it before. And a lot of times as parents, maybe you start to see some little clues, right? Because you know the kids so well. You're
Yeah.
one-on-one with them when they're escalating. And so there are times that maybe we can pick up on those little things. And there's other times when it just is, it goes from 0 to 100 really fast. And then we're stepping into, okay, now we're recognizing this has happened. How do we get this back online? So then it's kind of moving back into that piece we were talking about.
Yeah. So, with talking about recognizing the signs and the triggers, what are maybe some environmental or emotional triggers that you see that could cause children to experience dysregulation? So, how can we kind of adapt our approach when we notice these things?
Definitely. Um, this is one that again is really, really hard because it's such an individual thing, right?
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is essentially when we're talking dysregulation, the idea is our nervous system has picked up on something that is kind of it's too much. And so that too much is kind of what's then leading to we're moving into dysregulation. So I think in thinking about this, I want to give maybe one more teaching piece, and that is in this model we're talking about, right? In our limbic system, we have our amygdala, and the amygdala's job is to scan the environment for threats or challenges or something that essentially the brain might say, hey, we need to be ready to take this on. Because ultimately, when we talk about dysregulation, we can go one of two ways. Our nervous system can ramp up or it can shut down. And the ramp up biologically is our fight or flight response. And so, as the amygdala is scanning for threats or challenges, if it picks up on something that it says, hey, we might be ready, like we might need to take this on, then it's going to decide, are we giving up and shutting down, or are we moving into fight or flight? So the reason I wanted to bring that in here is the amygdala is, like I mentioned, scanning for threats or challenges. And it's what current neuroscience is telling us is it's scanning 400 billion bits of data per second. So I want to bring that in to kind of come back to your question, right? If we can only be consciously aware of less than 1% of that because that number is so immense.
Yeah.
Um, so as far as like, are there things we can do? Yes, maybe things like sense or feel, maybe we notice every time the kid gets on the rug for carpet time, like that, the way the rug feels is like dysregulating for them. So there might be some pieces that just make sense. And when the number's this big, chances are the kid doesn't even know why they're becoming dysregulated. Like it might be something just not even unconscious awareness that is leading to the nervous system being like, maybe we need to be ready to take this on.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think there's coming back to the question and just kind of trying to give something helpful here, right? Like there's times when maybe we can make that connection. Maybe it's the scent of an air freshener or something, or maybe it's the feel of the rug, or maybe it's like the kids bumping into each other while they're sitting next to each other, right? Like there are times that we can maybe piece it together and we can be like, oh, that makes sense. And there's going to be a lot of times when it might not make sense. And so the being proactive, again, kind of like I said in the last question, there's pieces we can do, and like we all become dysregulated every single day. And what we see a lot of times with kids, right, is it just is so, the dysregulation gets really big really quick. And it does for some adults too. So that's not to say it's just in kids, but it's the idea of we're not going to be able to just eliminate it by catching everything before the fact. We might be able to get little pieces here and there. And ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be probably a lot more the backside of it and helping support the kid, which is helping them learn how to regulate when things feel overwhelming, when they become dysregulated. So there's a lot of power in that backside, even if it's the really, really challenging side for us as the adult in the room.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point that it really is going to be different for every individual. We're all so different. We're all experiencing things so differently. So I can totally understand how, a trigger for someone is going to be totally different from someone else. And yeah, children might not always be able to communicate that. I know I don't work with children directly, so I'm kind of, relating this to myself to understand. And I know there's times where, yeah, you can definitely internally feel bothered by something, but can't necessarily pinpoint exactly what it is. So I think that kind of brings us into your coaching, right? And can you tell us more about your coaching sessions? Like, because you're working to support caregivers, to give them the tools and resources to be able to support children when they do notice these signs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the coaching side of my business is really still developing, to be honest, right? Because it is this piece of working with the kids. We're in the room. I'm able to see what's happening. I'm able to support all these pieces. Working with the adults, there's that added layer of, okay, we're relaying kind of this in between to me. And so I'm still kind of developing how I really, really want that to feel and to work. And so it's a conversation is ultimately kind of what I'm getting to there, right? Of if it's something that we're interested in, like, okay, let's pursue this a little bit more. I want to have the conversation with you ahead of time of let's talk about it. Let's talk about how things might look. What kind of support do you need? What are you seeing? So that we can get an idea of, is this the best route to go? Because I think there's the challenge a lot of times of like, if things feel really, really hard for the kid, I want the kid to get some support too, right? It's not just the come and work with me. And the way licensing works for therapy is I can only work as a therapist in Colorado and North Carolina because those are states I'm licensed. Versus coaching, I can work anywhere in the world. So as far as kind of the one-on-one coaching, it really is let's have a conversation to see if it fits. Let's see if it makes sense, if it's the best option for you and your family. Beyond that, I'm really liking doing like presenting and lessons and things like that, right? So what you will kind of find right now that's not like you're just like, hey, this is really interesting, I want to learn more, like is going to be more that presentation. So I have stuff that I've been working on and putting out on my site around like regulation and co-regulation. For educators, I have a presentation around it's about calls for support. So like in those moments when a kid is dysregulated, right? I started out as a school counselor, and so I would be called to support the kid. And so talking about understanding some of this and how that relates to supporting a kid in that big moment. So that's kind of more what's solidified. If you're just like, I want to learn more, and here's kind of pieces that might happen from. If you're like, no, I really want to like talk through this, work with you, then it starts as a conversation. It starts as I want to make sure that you're getting the best fit for you. Because ultimately, right, like that's the goal is for your family to feel supported, for you to feel like you're getting what you're needed. And so if we're having a conversation, we're like, you know what, like play therapy might be the route to go with your kid, then maybe we need to point you in that direction. If we're having the conversation, we're like, you know what, I think there's a lot of pieces here that we could make little tweaks, then let's talk and let's figure out how to make that happen for you. Long-winded answer, but that's kind of my belief in it is I want to make sure you're getting the support you need. And so the personalized work is kind of comes from that lens of let's make sure that's happening.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. This has been super helpful. And I think the biggest takeaway from here, at least for me, and maybe everyone watching might have a different takeaway here, but is just to observe. We're trying to learn and observe and be able to adapt. And hopefully this video and your resources can be a good direction to point someone in if they do find themselves needing help and support and more information here.
Definitely. And like you kind of alluded to at the beginning, like my Instagram, my whole goal is to like teach things that can be helpful for you to bring into the moment. And so I was thinking back to what you said at the beginning about the like applying it to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That piece of like just having these understanding of these things we can use to help it not feel so overwhelming for us so that we can be intentional in how we're responding to the kid. And so I just wanted to come back to what you said at the beginning of like having that understanding for us is such a foundational piece of all of it, so that we're able to not flip our own lid and be able to support the kid in the way that we want to logically and rationally.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely a really great resource there. Like I said, I've learned so much, and in a really nice and easy digestible format too, I think for most of us. So what would be the best way for our viewers to learn more and to connect with you moving forward?
Yeah. Honestly, Instagram, like I just said, Instagram's been a great place because I try to make it little bite-sized pieces if you're interested in learning, but not being like, I want to take it all in. Instagram can be a great way of just little videos can only be up to 90 seconds. So just little snippets.
Yeah.
If you do kind of want to go more from there, things are linked out from my Instagram page. So that's a great starting point. But then from there, kind of, like I said, the two different businesses right now, if you're in North Carolina or Colorado and you're interested in play therapy, lowtideplaytherapy.com is my website for that. And if you are interested in pursuing coaching or maybe some of the presentations I've talked about, lowtidecoaching.com. So pretty simple. And like I said, Instagram's a great starting point because you have access to all of those things from there.
Great. Thank you. I did just put your Instagram and contact information, websites, all of that in the comments here on this video. You can also, for those watching, you can also find them in the show notes or in the description of the video as well. All right, Hayden, do you have any final thoughts to leave us with today?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of what I just said a minute ago, relating back what you said at the beginning. I think just that having an understanding of what's going on and being able to recognize that we can utilize that information to be able to keep ourselves logical and rational. That's kind of, I think, the big piece of what I'm trying to put out there, right? Because if we're able to keep our lid on, then we can be intentional about how we're responding, which is a very, very large part of the struggle of supporting big behaviors, right? Because when we come in and we flip our own lid, then things are just, everything's out the window.
Yeah, it escalates from there for sure. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing all of this information. I hope that everyone watching got to learn something new. I know I definitely did. And it's been really great to hang out with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to chat.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching with us today. I hope that you all have a good rest of your day. Don't forget to add a comment to this video or videos coming up soon to let us know what do you do to take care of yourself outside of work. And then you'll be entered in to win a scholarship to use Alliance Core completely free for 1 year. And that is for our current Alliance Core users. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye.